Hi friends and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the first monitoring my physical TBR of the year. I don't even know what year it is of me doing this. It's either my third or fourth. I actually think it's my fourth year of doing this, which is exciting and fun. If you don't know, monitoring my TBR is basically where every quarter I go through the books I've read in the last 3 months, purchased, been gifted, hauled, unhauled, all of that fun stuff. It is a way for me to keep track of my physical TBR, how many books I have on it, get some perspective on how my reading is going, if I'm buying a lot of books, no books at all. And it is April 1st, 3 months has passed, and it's time to summarize these first 3 months of the year. Now, spoiler alert, it might be the least thrilling episode of this series so far. I feel like I will have some interesting reflections. Last year we ended on 139 books, meaning that I started the year with 139 books on my physical TBR. That means all of the books I own that I have not yet read. It excludes any potential ebooks, audiobooks, things like that. It excludes books I purchased with the purpose of rereading them. So it really is every single unread book on my TBR that I own. And I'm gonna do it as per usual by the categories I have, talk about them month by month. In the last 3 months I have read a total of 15 books. This includes books across all formats and sorts of reading. 15 books in total, averages to 5 books a month, which is quite solid. I am ahead of my Goodreads challenge so far, which is great. I think my aim for the Goodreads challenge is 52 books. I tend to do that nowadays. I had sort of a rough start in January. February was great because of the Olympics-a-thon and I really pushed myself. And then March got really slow, actually. Slower than I felt like it was. But I do have a couple of books that I am actually currently reading that have sort of rolled over from March. So I still feel like I'm making good progress, even though we might not see it in the March numbers. In January I read a total of 4 books. 1 was a library books, 2 were audiobooks, and 1 was a physical read. My Friends by Fredrik Backman, in Swedish this time. Meaning, yes, this was a reread. I had read this book in English previously. I now read it in Swedish for a book club with my friends. It was a reread for me, which means it was not on my physical TBR. So out of the 4 books I read, none of them count of my physical TBR. Even though I read this, even though it was technically unread, I guess, I have still read the story, so it doesn't count. This is more like a collectible thing when I have perhaps multiple editions or such. Although I am thinking of unhauling my English edition of My Friends actually. But that means that in January I read 0 books of my physical TBR. Then enter February. In February we had the Olympics-a-thon, a readathon I hosted, and I read a total of 9 books. 9 books read in February, the shortest month of the year, and I read 9 books. That is quite incredible actually. Out of those 9 reads, 4 were audiobooks. 1 was a book I had borrowed from a friend, 1 was a library book, and 3 books were actually from my physical TBR. I honestly read plenty in February, but still, I didn't read that many books from my physical TBR compared to perhaps other months, or if you look at other years of me doing this, which is interesting, but I feel like perhaps I already have a theory about this. I think because I'm buying fewer books, I'm more encouraged to borrow books from the library, borrow books from friends, and look up books as audiobooks. I'm not as stressed about reading my own physical TBR. I am allowing myself the space to borrow books or read copies I don't own. But the 3 books I read were Ear by Jan Prochaska, this was for the Olympics-a-thon. The Favorites by Lane Fargo was for the Olympics-a-thon, and the same thing with Dolly Good Dream Department Store by Mie E. And then we have March, and I honestly felt like I was doing quite alright in March, but I think that was only the last 2 weeks of March, or barely even that. I read 2 books in March. 1 was an ebook, and 1 was a physical book. Mythos by Stephen Fry. yeah, I don't know what happened in March. I think I sort of burned out after the Olympics-a-thon. So it took me a couple of weeks to recover. And then I went away for a week and was on quite an intense ski trip / conference. And then I got back home and got into reading. So in these 3 months, I have read 3 books of my physical TBR. It's basically like 1 book a month, a bit more. And this doesn't even equal to a book buying token. If you do not know, I have sort of low-key a book buying ban or a low buy, where I'm only allowed to purchase books within certain parameters or with certain reasons. I did this last year, it worked great, so I'm keeping up with this year. It's a way to force myself to work on my physical TBR, to encourage me to borrow books from other sources, and also sort of to, I guess, earn my books, save money, things like that. The rules are that for every 5 books I read off my physical TBR, I earn 1 book buying token that I can purchase any book I like with. And so far I haven't really earned any. I need to finish 1 more book before I can buy whatever I want. There are a few exceptions. I am allowed to purchase books from my 3 favorite authors, and those are W.E. Schwab, R.F. Kuang, and Fredrik Backman. I can purchase books from those whenever, no questions asked. I'm also always allowed to purchase sequels, preferably when I'm about to get to that sequel, but still, I'm always allowed to purchase sequels because I don't want to hinder myself from continuing with a series I'm enjoying. This might allow for some loopholes, because like, what is a sequel? But for me, I'm considering books in the same universe that are sort of interconnected. So actually, I would be allowed to purchase the next book in Stephen Fry's Greek Myths series, or whatever it's called. The next one is Heroes. I would kind of count that as a sequel. Same thing with Dalagut Dream Department Store. This one actually has a sequel or a book in the same universe called Return to the Dalagut Dream Department Store. So technically I would be allowed to purchase sequels in these, and I might. And it's sort of a way for me to scratch the itch of wanting to buy a book, but still keeping it sort of contained within what I've been reading. And then the third loophole, or the third exception, is that I'm allowed to purchase books I've already read. Meaning that if any of the books I, for example, listened to as an audiobook these last few months, or perhaps an ebook or library book or whatever, if I read that and would like to add that to my collection, then that's also fine. Because if I add it to my collection, I most likely hope to reread it at some point in the future. I've done it with a few books, not all of the books, but with a few books. 4 books read so far, no book buying tokens earned yet. We started at 139 books, we're subtracting 4, so we're currently at 135 books on my physical TBR. The next category is hauled books. Books I've purchased these last 3 months. As you might hear, I have some strict rules. I have not been allowed to purchase whatever I want really, but we will talk through it. So honestly, I've only just purchased 2 books in this last quarter, and one was an ebook. The ebook I read in March. So actually in January, if we start there, I picked up Quicksilver by Callie Hart. And you might be thinking, but hey, you didn't have a book buying token. I did. I had one that rolled over from last year, from December. By the end of last year, I had read 30 books off my physical TBR. And the token I earned from that 30th book, I had not yet used. So I started the year by purchasing this book, because this is a book me and a friend has talked about doing a buddy read for. So we both picked this one up actually. And I was allowed to, which was great. So this is where it's always good for me to make an attempt to save tokens as well, for those sort of cases where perhaps I'm buying something special, or I want something special, or want to purchase a book together with a friend or whatever. 1 book purchased in January. In February I purchased 1 book, but that was an ebook. I picked up Heated Rivalry because I was so obsessed with the show and I needed to get that fix after I finished the show. So I picked up Heated Rivalry on my e-reader and read it in March. And then I haven't purchased anything in March. So only 1 book added to my physical TBR these last 3 months, which must be some sort of record. So we were at 135 books. We're now adding 1 book, getting us to 136 books. And then the next categories typically are gifted books. I have not been gifted any books these last 3 months. There hasn't really been any reason to. No birthdays, no holidays, nothing like that. And then also unhauled books is the final category. And I have not yet unhauled any books this year. There are a couple of books I'm starting to consider to maybe unhaul, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I haven't counted them off my TBR yet. And that actually means that we're ending this count at 136 books, which is 3 less than we started the year with. So we are slowly going down. My aim, I tend to say, is always to read half of my physical TBR. Considering the tempo that I'm doing this at, it's very unlikely. It's basically 1 book a month. So that if I were to keep this up, I would have gotten to, like, what would it be? 127 books or something like that by the end of the year. I feel like I can definitely up how many books I read for my physical TBR. I really feel like 4 is little. Considering that I read 30 books of my physical TBR last year, that sort of equals to like 7 or 8 books per quarter, which is almost like 2, almost 3 books a month. And I'm at 1 book a month. That's quite a big difference actually. So I definitely feel like there's every chance of me upping my reads from my own physical TBR. I can't really speak for January or March. Those months just feels odd, and I've been doing a lot of like mood reading and stuff. I've really struggled to stick to TBRs for most of the time. The only time it really worked for me was with the Olympics-a-thon, but also in order to make an attempt to complete the Olympics-a-thon, I had to pick up books I didn't own, so a lot of audiobooks, a borrowed book, things like that. But I can't really speak for January or March. I feel like I should have read a lot more from my own TBR during those months. I'm hoping to fix this in April actually. I'm currently in the middle of like 2 physical reads and 1 audiobook. So fingers crossed, and also I will be doing a bit more traveling in the upcoming months. I'm hoping to read more on like flights and stuff, have some more cozy evenings in, things like that. So I just need to motivate myself some more, I feel like. I forgot to turn this one on. I should start doing that. It's cute, right? I still feel like I've had a solid start to the year reading-wise, considering my Goodreads goal and that I'm 15 books in, which is good. I am also happy with the amount of audiobooks I've been listening to actually, and that I have borrowed books from other sources. But I do feel like I need to focus a bit more on my physical TBR. It's either like reading those books or actually unhauling them. So I might do some more unhauling in the near future as well. If we just consider quality of what I read, honestly I haven't been that many 5 stars. I think I've had like 2, maybe 3 5 stars, something like that. 1 is like my favorite book of the year. 1 is a reread and 1 is rounded up, I think. So it hasn't been my strongest reading year so far either, but actually last year wasn't that strong either. I gave like 5 books 5 stars last year. But I feel like if I start reading my physical TBR, I'm gonna have more 5 stars. I'm convinced that there are like tens of 5 stars on these shelves. Amongst these 136 books that I have, 20 of them, 30 of them should be 5 stars, right? Because I wouldn't have purchased them if I didn't think I would be interested in them. That's another thing why I want to focus so much on my physical TBR, because I really do feel like there are some gold stars here that I need to get to. But I feel now like I'm just blabbering for the purpose of blabbering. I did say this was gonna be a shorter recap, that I didn't have that many numbers to play with. Hopefully we will change that for the next update, which will come your way in the end of June, start of July, by the next quarter basically. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please take care and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!